Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be looking at a cold case, the case of HaLeigh Cummings, missing from Satsuma, Florida. Just a reminder that this video is just my opinion. Opinions are not facts, and the viewers are always encouraged to look at the available public information in order to form their own opinions. HaLeigh Ann Marie Cummings, age 5, went missing from Satsuma on February 10th, 2009. About 12 years ago. She was born on August 17, 2003, and she has Turner syndrome. That's a missing X chromosome. HaLeigh has curly, strawberry blonde hair, brown eyes, 2 facial birthmarks. One was more prominent on her left cheek. HaLeigh attended Pierce Browning Elementary School, and she was a typical child that loved things like mac and cheese and Hannah Montana, and she was last seen in a pink shirt and underwear. So let's look at the people associated with this case. Let's start with her father, Ronald Cummings. I call him Ron, I was at work Cummings. He was 25 at the time. And then you have Misty Crosland, who's commonly called the babysitter. But really, she was Ron Cummings' living girlfriend. She was 16 years old, then she was 17 years old. And there was an 8-year age difference between Ron and his girlfriend, Misty. This clipping from the Bradenton Herald talks about how Ron first met Misty. It says here they'd met months earlier in their Satsuma neighborhood and had seen each other at the school bus stop at the end of Tyler Street, where HaLeigh was dropped off with Misty Crosland's nephew. Also, apparently, Ron had another son with another girlfriend that Misty had done some babysitting for. This is how she got known to be the babysitter, but she becomes his girlfriend, essentially. Then there's HaLeigh's mother, Crystal Sheffield, who was 23 years old when HaLeigh went missing. By all accounts, Crystal, HaLeigh's mother, was also extremely young when she first hooked up with Ronald Cummings. She was 14 years old, and he was, I believe, 15 years old at the time. So you could say that he's been with women that are younger than him. We'll just leave it at that, shall we? And then there's Ronald Jr., otherwise known as Junior or RJ or Butterbean, who's pictured here with his mother, Crystal Sheffield. And this was his age when his sister went missing. See how tiny he is. Crystal had some issues. So on the date that HaLeigh went missing, Ron Cummings had full custody of both HaLeigh and Ronald Jr. Like all the players in this story, Crystal had a hard life, and she was unemployed at the time allegedly Ron got custody of the children. The family lived in Satsuma, Florida. It's a small town near the St. Johns River with a population in 2009 of 6,148 people. A very small town. And so the story begins. On February 10, 2009, Misty Crosland called 911 at 3:27 a.m., and the 911 call is very telling. Emergency calls are usually the first opportunity or the first interaction with law enforcement, and here the 911 operator elicits some information that a child is missing, that the back door to the double-wide mobile home was unlocked, that a screen door was propped open with a cinder block, that there was no sign of forced entry, and while questioning Misty and then Ronald, the operator begins dispatching out to 202 Green Lane. In the 911 call, Misty establishes her alibi right from the start of the call. She says, I just woke up and our back door was wide open and I can't find our daughter. Let's listen to the call.
I just woke up and our back door was wide open and we can't find our daughter.
Can't find what?
Our daughter.
Okay, what's your address?
Green Lane. What does that mean?
What's the numerical?
The miracle, what's that?
The number? Green Lane?
Yes.
Okay, when did you last see her?
We were just like, it was about 10 o'clock. She was sleeping, I was cleaning.
Okay, how old is your daughter?
She's 5.
Okay, what was she last seen wearing?
So let's make some observations here. Misty says, I just woke up and our back door was wide open and I can't find our daughter. And note that Misty is not the mother of the missing child. She's simply the girlfriend of Ronald Cummings. We don't know if she said this just for the ease of the information or if she just felt so extremely bonded to the child that she called HaLeigh her daughter, but that's something to be noted. Misty goes on to say that she last saw the child at 10 in pajamas and that she was sleeping while Misty was cleaning. And she said she woke up later and the back door was propped open with a brick, which we later find out to be a cinder block, and that the back door was usually locked. So let's go back to the 911 call. Here's where Ron Cummings can be heard on the call ranting and raving.
Ma'am?
She was in her pajamas. We were sleeping.
Okay. All right. You said your back door was wide open?
Yes, it was brick. Like a brick on the floor. Like when I went to sleep, the door was not like that.
Okay, the back door, listen to me. Your back door was wide open. What are you talking about, a brick?
Yes.
What is the brick?
It's on the back door on the stairs. Like we have like a walkway.
Uh-huh. And there was a brick laying there?
Yes, it's still there. They are.
We got them coming. Tell them we got them coming.
They're coming.
Okay, what's the color of your house, ma'am?
It's blue.
It's blue? Okay. Okay, what does she look like? How tall is she? Give me some description of her.
She has like long hair, curly, like curls.
Long, curled, what color?
She's white.
Okay, what
And
color
she's brown hair.
Brown hair?
Yeah. Oh my God, it's freaking old.
How tall is she about? Or how much does she weigh? Do you know that?
Huh?
About how tall or how much does she weigh?
Like 4 something, like, I don't know, like, she's not that tall.
Okay, tell your husband we got him coming, okay?
Okay.
How much does she weigh? Do you know?
Huh?
How much does she weigh?
Like 40, 50 pounds, 60 pounds.
40 to 60 pounds?
Yeah.
Okay, let me get your name and phone number.
My name is...
Spell your last name?
Oh, I just woke up.
Okay, was your back door locked, do you know?
Yes, but that's what always stays locked.
Man, I need somebody to get here now.
Okay, let me speak to him so he
Yeah, here.
I just got home from work. My 5-year-old daughter is gone. I need
Okay.
somebody to be here now. I'm telling you.
Listen to me. We got 2 officers.
If I find whoever has my daughter before y'all do, I'm killing them. I don't care. I'll spend the rest of my life in prison. I'm telling you, you can put it on recording. I don't care.
Okay, it's okay, sir. We got him on the way. Okay, can you give me what kind of description of her pajamas that she was wearing?
I don't fucking know. I was at work.
Okay, sir, we got him coming, okay?
So then a minute elapses between Ron Cummings allegedly hanging up on the 911 operator and the 911 operator calling back, ringing 1, 2, 3, 4, and being answered on the 5th ring. So there's a solid minute of who knows what going on at the mobile home and who knows who was inside.
Hello?
Okay, sir, let me talk to your wife. So let me get some information from her. Okay. Can I talk to her? Okay.
How the fuck do you let my dog go, bitch?
Ma'am?
Yeah.
Okay, listen to me. I need you to answer some questions. Does the door look like it was pried open?
Lock back here.
Does it look like you had some sort of someone try to enter into your house?
Hold on.
And another thing, make sure you and your husband don't touch the door anymore. Don't mess with the door or anything.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't look like it is?
No.
Okay, now listen, tell your husband do not touch anything. Make
Fuck
sure
it
it's,
sideways.
because we're going to try to get a canine out there.
Somebody else.
Okay. She said don't touch anything because they're bringing K9 out here.
They better motherfucking bring something in. If I find that motherfucker killing him, I don't give a fuck about prison. Prison don't scare me.
Okay, we understand. We got him on the way, okay? What's her name? How do you spell her first name? What's her middle name?
Yeah.
And the spelling of the last name is...
Well, that's my last name. That's not hers. Her name is... Where'd you do it?
What's her date of birth?
I'm gonna fucking kill somebody.
Okay, well, tell them we understand. We need to get her date of birth.
What's her date of birth?
Fucking date of birth is. We need to find her. Fuck her date of birth.
Okay, listen to me. I'm getting this information. I'm not the officer driving out there, okay?
Okay.
They're coming out there to handle that situation. I need to gather all information from you over the phone. It has nothing to do with me driving out there. The officers are taking care of that, okay? They're coming out there, okay?
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to stay on the phone with you, okay?
Okay.
Until they get there. All right, hang on. Tell him we got him coming. He needs to try to calm down a little bit, okay? The officers are going to come out there and do what they can. We can't have him screaming and yelling at the officers whenever they get there, okay?
Got better people to talk to than the fucking motherfucker that ain't coming.
So here's my observation. Misty sounds absolutely terrified, and Ron is displaying anger and urgency. He shows up on the scene, into the call, and he's in turns both whining and yelling. And he also establishes an alibi right off the get-go with I just got home from work. My 5-year-old's gone. If I find whoever has my daughter before you all do, I'm killing them. If I get my hands on that MFer, I'm going to kill him. My question is this: why the specificity with assuming the child was taken, and why the specificity on knowing like a male did it, like an MFer? Why wouldn't he just think that maybe the child wandered off? Is it because of the cinder block? Or is it because there was some kind of a past drama with somebody or some group or something that made him think that there was someone that wanted to take his child? I don't know. This case was notable to me right from the beginning for how these folks reacted on the 911 call. Ron cursed the 911 operator. He cursed the law enforcement. He cursed his girlfriend. He hung up twice on 911. And he was basically so unhelpful that the operator spoke to his 16-year-old girlfriend, Misty, instead of him, the father. There were so many crappy and redacted copies of this 911 call out, and now I can't find any good copy anymore of the 911 call, short of getting it from the state. But in other copies that were more clear in this 911 call, when you can filter out the constant beeping and the very loud noises, you can hear allegedly Ron banging around in the background, talking to someone. Maybe he's talking on another phone. I don't know. Maybe he's just talking to himself. I speculate that he was talking to his mother, that she had arrived very quickly onto the scene. I think he was talking to his mother. There's allegations that you can hear him comment regarding find effing Joe or dope. He yells, you can clearly hear him say he has better people to call than 911. And who would that be? Maybe his mother, because wasn't she a dispatcher or something like that? And people had also noted before that he never cried out during the 911 call, calling his daughter's name, and that Misty also didn't. However, in one of the initial 911 calls, you can hear him call her name one time before the call starts. So the story goes that Misty called Ron, and as he was pulling into the driveway, she told him about the missing child, and they looked around for about 3 minutes, and then 911 was called by Misty. Ron's mother, Teresa Neves, arrived on the scene, arguably after the police arrived. There's some argument that he called his mother during the first 911 call, between the hanging up and all that. And others argue that Ron called his grandmother as well as his mother before calling 911, before calling law enforcement. It's true that Teresa arrived on the scene very quickly. She says it took her 5 minutes to get there. And she also arrived with a recent photo of HaLeigh already in hand for the police. So the police and the canine tracking dogs arrived at the scene, and they used a scent for some sheets and some bedclothes that were placed outside as the scent item. And the bloodhounds then tracked the scent to a nearby dock. And the police searched the mobile home. They allegedly didn't see any kind of drugs in the house. I don't know if that was because there weren't any in there or because they were cleared out ahead of time. There was no forced entry into the mobile home, no evidence of any kind of a scuffle or a crime inside or outside, and seemingly the only thing that was odd was that cinder block that was used to prop open the back door screen door. This is a picture of the back door of the mobile home, the one that had the screen propped open with the cinder block. This picture was taken in the daytime. This isn't a crime scene photo. I think it was taken by a reporter. And I believe this is a picture from the case file, a picture of the cinder block propped open and a blanket, HaLeigh's blanket. It's almost an odd positioning of the blanket, almost like, how heavy those are and how rough they are on little delicate hands, almost like a female carried that block and used the blanket in order to carry the block. Or maybe I'm just fantasizing. Let's do a deep dive into the timeline. The last day she was seen was February 9th, 2009. So let's look at the timeline and keep in mind that these times are approximate and there's also some speculation and rumors here with the facts, all right? So on February 9th, 2009, about 3:20 in the afternoon, HaLeigh was picked up from the bus stop, meaning the bus dropped her off about 3:20. And either Ron or Misty picked her up from the bus stop. There's a debate over whether it was Ron or whether it was Misty, and allegedly Misty didn't have her valid driver's license. So regardless, someone picked up the child from the bus stop. Allegedly, Junior was napping while HaLeigh was being picked up from the bus stop. Around 4:30 that afternoon, Ron headed to work as a fork truck operator. Typically, he arrived early to work. And his shift that day was scheduled for 5 to 12, but then I believe a boat or something came in and he was asked to work an extra 3 hours of overtime, which he did. So that put him at work until 3 a.m. Around 5 o'clock, give or take, an air conditioning serviceman, I think his name was Santos, arrived at the mobile home. And when the man arrived there, Misty, who was there at the mobile home, because Ron had gone to work, Misty had Ron on the phone, and she handed the phone so that the AC could speak to Ronald about the job, the repair job. Allegedly, the AC man also told police that Misty, HaLeigh, Misty's brother Tommy, and his kids were at the trailer. That's according to the AC man, allegedly. And that around 5:30, Tommy left, and that HaLeigh'd been playing with the other kids. I don't know if Tommy left with his kids or not. So then at 6 p.m., according to Misty, she starts fixing dinner for herself and for HaLeigh and Junior, and that she then fed the children on the screened-in porch. Allegedly, the weather was getting rather chilly. It was in the upper 50 degrees, but it was a screened-in porch. Allegedly, HaLeigh had green beans, and also allegedly Grandma Sykes, driving by around 7, saw the kids eating on the porch. I want to add a clarification here. I believe that HaLeigh's last meal was green beans and hamburger helper. Also, I want to clarify that to HaLeigh, Annette Sykes is her great-grandmother. She's the grandmother of Ron Cummings. So at 7 in the evening, give or take, Grandma Sykes saw HaLeigh when she allegedly delivered the kids' clean laundry to the mobile home. And my question is, why did she really drop by? Why did Grandma do the laundry if the mobile home had a working washing machine, which it seemingly did? Was it because Misty had allegedly been on a bender during the prior 3 days and wasn't around to do the laundry for the kids? There's speculation that Ron's mother, Teresa Neves, found Misty to babysit that night. Like, in other words, went and gathered her up, got her from her bender in order to babysit. And there's also speculation that Grandma was also asked to go over to the mobile home and check on the kids because Misty had been on that bender those previous days. Now, keep in mind, Misty Crosland is 16 years old at this time. She has quit school. I think her highest level of education at the time was like 3rd grade. She couldn't really read or write very well, and she liked to party. Around 8:30, Misty maintains that she put the children in beds to watch movies. Allegedly, Junior was watching Madagascar and HaLeigh was watching Air Bud or Air Buddies. Allegedly, HaLeigh was wearing a pink Hannah Montana top. And Misty maintains that at some point she washed one of HaLeigh's blankets because she must have urinated on it. Ron said later that Misty could not have done the laundry because they did not have any detergent at the mobile home. But note that you can do laundry without adding detergent. It just isn't as effective. At 8:30, give or take, allegedly Ron Cummings and Misty Crosland get into an argument over the phone regarding babysitting other people's kids. Now, I don't know if that means Misty was upset about babysitting Ron's kids, or if Ron was upset because she was babysitting another person's kids. I don't know what that's supposed to mean, or if it even really happened. But Misty allegedly turned off her phone in a huff, and there's debate over some 20 plus calls from Ronald to Misty that went unanswered throughout that evening. Of course, law enforcement has the phone records and the public does not know, so we don't know the veracity of the witness statements here. And at 10:30, Misty stated that the kids were in Misty's bed, the master bed. In the bedroom, there was a king mattress on the master bedroom floor and a twin bed 3 feet away. Allegedly, at this time, HaLeigh was on the twin mattress and Junior was in the big bed. Misty stated that she went to sleep next to Junior. And note, and I'm going to put a picture up here, there is a master bath also connected to this room. This is just for further reference, and allegedly the bedroom door was open while they slept. Then around 2:25 a.m., a neighbor heard yelling coming from the mobile home. Allegedly at 3:10 a.m. on February 10th, Misty turns on her phone, and she has since then told varying stories about what woke her up, whether it was to get a drink or because she saw a light flick on in the kitchen and that Ron wasn't there. But Misty claims she awoke and that she didn't see HaLeigh and that she called Ron. So Ron was working until 3 a.m., which allegedly has been verified. Then he went to a Kangaroo convenience store to purchase beer, cigarettes, and nuts. So at 3:10 a.m., Misty's turned on her phone. Allegedly, she called her brother Tommy before she called 911. And we know she called 911 at 3:27 because at least that is time-stamped. Because so many people have lied in this case, so it's hard to keep everything straight. And I gotta ask, if she called her brother before 911, why? It's believed that Tommy Crosland was at the Crosland residence and that her parents were at the hospital that night. So if there was a call to the Crosland residence at this time, it was to reach her brother Tommy. Misty obviously called Ron. At 3:24 a.m., Ron arrives at the mobile home. Allegedly, Misty met him at the door and told him that she couldn't find HaLeigh, and they looked around for HaLeigh for 3 minutes before calling 911. This is the official story. We know that Misty placed the 911 call at 3:27 a.m., and Ron can be heard in the background. It's believed that Ron called his mother during the first 911 call, or there's speculation he may have called his mother before the 911 call because of the early arrival of Teresa Neves on the scene. Law enforcement arrived at the mobile home at 3:40 a.m. Ron's mother, Teresa, arrived very quickly on the scene, and she arrived already with a big picture of HaLeigh to show law enforcement. And I'm just curious why there wasn't a picture of HaLeigh in the mobile home to use. And some people have speculated that Teresa was called before the 911 call, like I mentioned, and that is why she arrived so quickly at the mobile home. The police later said that nothing of significance was found inside the mobile home. John Merchant was the lead detective at the time, and he said there wasn't anything inside. There wasn't any loose pills or drug paraphernalia, nothing on the outside that looked awry except for the the cinder block that was propping the back door open. I've been following this case since 2009, and I remember back then someone had said that the Hannah Montana top was found in a laundry pile by the back door. If that's true, and if HaLeigh had that on, in my opinion, a stranger wouldn't know where to put a dirty shirt. They wouldn't know to put her shirt in a known laundry pile. That's just my opinion. Ron also later said that the bed was made and did not appear to have been slept in. But keep in mind, he says this later on after things start falling apart, after his relationship with Misty starts falling apart. So here's some footage of the master bedroom. Here you see the twin bed that HaLeigh was allegedly sleeping in. And you can see the distance between the twin bed and the king-size bed is literally like 3.5 feet away. I believe the sheets and the pillowcases were removed for evidence. Here's Misty.
I got up because I had to use the bathroom, but I didn't make it to the bathroom. I seen the kitchen light on, and I walked in the kitchen, and the back door is wide open. I mean, I didn't notice about HaLeigh then until I seen the back door open, and then I go in the room, and she's gone. And that's all I know.
HaLeigh's father, Ronald, was working the overnight shift as a crane operator on the night of February 9th. When he returned home, his daughter was gone.
They has her, they have her hid. I just want my daughter back, that's it. She wasn't there when I got home.
Attention immediately focused on Ronald's girlfriend, 17-year-old Misty Croslin, who was babysitting HaLeigh and her brother, Ronald Jr.
About 8 o'clock, and I woke up, and she was gone. And the back door was wide open. And the last time I seen her was when I put her to bed. I just want everybody to know that I didn't do anything with that little girl. I love her like she's my own, and I'll do anything to get her back.
So law enforcement arrive at the mobile home, and they proceed to talk to both Ron and Misty and Ron's mother when she shows up, and they get information about the mother of the child, Crystal Sheffield, and more information about HaLeigh. And then law enforcement interviewed Ron and Misty, and then they left them together in a room for a little while, so we get to see that.
Give me 1 second. What? You didn't wake up.
I would never let nothing happen to her. If I knew something like someone didn't take her.
No, you didn't get out of bed.
I didn't even hear anything.
So this is as told by Thielen, right? Right. So I'm going to give you what I thought back in 2009, because this happened in my state, and we were following the Caylee Anthony case. Heck, I searched in the Caylee Anthony case. We'll not get sidetracked. This case popped up. I did not search with search and rescue with this case. However, I know people that are involved in this case. I have a last name as some of the folks involved in this case. I'm not in any way related to anyone in this case, by the way. I just want to give that caveat. But here's what I want to say in the middle of this documentary here for you guys. I initially saw Ron Cummings and Misty's behavior as extremely suspicious. I did not believe these two folks, especially Ron. I did not believe him. And the reason initially was Ron's demeanor. The stuff that was shown on TV, his performative behavior. I listened to the 911 call and I saw performative. I have some very country cousins, country family, and there's a certain way they can be when they get kind of hysterical or overwrought, or they're just exaggerating. And I saw that as performative. Believe Ron. And I didn't know what to make of the sweet-faced but zombied out Misty. I saw Misty as looking way younger than her age, and I just didn't believe either of them. I really didn't. But I didn't ever get to see the little clip I just showed you, where you can see Ron is almost sticking around with her to see what he can get out of her. I think now I see how he's side-eyeing her in all these interviews and stuff. He is keeping his enemies close, I think. So let's go back to the story. Seemingly Ron and his family rallied around Misty and didn't seem to suspect her of any foul play. The Putnam County Sheriff's Office Child Protection Team interviewed Junior to ascertain what he saw. Junior told police that he saw a man in black take HaLeigh. Make of that what you will, considering this child's age. HaLeigh's mother, Crystal Sheffield, was never considered to be a suspect in her disappearance, and she does later come forward to talk about the alleged abuse that she suffered at the hands of Ronald. Some tracking dogs were brought on the scene, and they used the blanket as a scent item, and one bloodhound allegedly went to the dock near the house, about a boat ramp 500 yards from the mobile home, and they did a house-to-house search as a result of that. The divers probed the St. Johns River. That's a river populated by gators, but gators do go into hibernation when it's cold outside. And the other bloodhound allegedly went off to a train track, and I think multiple bloodhounds then came out and did go to the dock. So the Putnam County Police searched the area. They went door to door. They searched the scrubs and the pines all around the wooded mobile home. And so Texas EquiSearch was come and asked to help search because they needed the volunteers. And Texas EquiSearch was already around because of the Caylee Anthony case. So it was mid-February 2009. Texas EquiSearch comes out to offer help. Tim Miller met with Ron and Misty, and also joining the EquiSearch search group was a volunteer named Donna Brock, and we'll have more on her later. So Tim Miller and some of his group are getting to know Ron and Misty and getting information out of them. And meanwhile, there's suspicion in the town about who could have done this. In the aftermath, Ron Cummings' family circled Misty with support like some kind of a wagon train. And 1 month after HaLeigh's disappearance, Ron and Misty wed in a ceremony in the yard. So it was March 12th of that same year, and he up and marries his teenage girlfriend in the yard of the mobile home. And it's just pitiful. The pictures are pitiful. She's in her princess dress and her princess tiara, and Ron wears sunglasses, his Ray-Bans or whatever, so he can not be seen while he's side-eyeing his bride, huh? Ron married Misty Crosland, went to New York City on a honeymoon. The trip was allegedly paid for by the Today Show. And when asked why they got married, Misty replied, "This is what HaLeigh wanted." Theories were bandied about as to why they got married, why this couple got married while the child is missing. And it was speculated that maybe someone feared a statutory rape charge since Misty was underage and, he was older than her. But she received permission from her mother, Lisa, shown here, to marry Ron, and they stayed married for only 6 months. And then some people speculated that they got married to kind of avoid some kind of a criminality, like using a spousal privilege. But see, that wouldn't apply to what happened before you got married. Also, in Florida, there is an exemption that if a child is a victim of a crime, the marital privilege would not apply. So there's 2 reasons why that would fail on its face if someone was going to try to use that legally, but doesn't mean that these folks knew that. Keep in mind that Misty has the equivalent of a 3rd grade education. Of course, the media descended like vultures, and of course, the family also used the media to get HaLeigh's information out there. As you would with a missing child, you're going to use the media. And this was coming right on the heels of the Caylee Anthony case here. So the media was waiting for the next case to cover. And these families used the media. And Ronald Cummings repeatedly went on Nancy Grace and became her little darling. Honestly, I've never seen the like of it with Nancy Grace, with her and Ron, with him calling her Miss Nancy like he was a little lamb. And not to be outdone, of course, Geraldo interviews HaLeigh's mother, Crystal Sheffield, and other people. So everybody was doing the competing interviews.
A bitter divide has surfaced between the mother, Crystal, and her family, and the father, Ron, and his family. Up until this point, they have deflected all questions about each other's character and background. But today, in a series of exclusive interviews, they are letting it all hang out.
Crystal, is it not a fact that he was abusive to you?
Yes, he was. When I first got pregnant with HaLeigh, he punched me in the back of the head, and before then he was verbal I mean, he was just very abusive.
So Crystal was going on Geraldo and saying that Ronald was abusive to her, but that Ronald did, she thought, love HaLeigh, but she was suspicious of Misty. Law enforcement and people started looking into the other folks that were at the trailer that day, allegedly Tommy Crosland, Misty's brother, and also looking just into, say, Annette, the great-grandmother of HaLeigh who dropped by, and Ronald's mother. In Texas EquiSearch, some of those folks were getting close to Misty and Ron, and this is where it gets a little exciting. Tim convinces Misty to undergo a polygraph, a voice stress analysis, and hypnosis, and later on she says that she only had agreed to the hypnosis. Misty underwent 2 days of questioning, and she allegedly failed the polygraph. She was allegedly uncooperative regarding the hypnosis, and her voice analysis looked suspicious. Seemingly, Ronald is also becoming suspicious of her at this point, I believe it is. He insists that she couldn't have gone to bed that night because the bed was made. And allegedly, one of the volunteers, Donna Brock, from Texas EquiSearch at the time, was cozying up to Misty and had gone to New York with her, I believe, had bought her some clothes. I believe EquiSearch paid for that, and got really close to Misty, and Misty confided some horrible things about her childhood to her. And allegedly, Donna Brock ended up giving some of her prescription pills to Misty. And somebody sent in a tip that these folks were doing drugs or dealing drugs. And meanwhile, the little Satsuma town doesn't really know what to make of all this. And I commonly think of the location that these crimes occurs. These towns could sometimes be their own characters. And you have little Satsuma, a small community. It's got 6,000 people in it. It's called here not much more than a wide spot in the road. It has a convenience store and a small restaurant at the time and an Amtrak train that roared through the town. Okay, and most of the people were retired. So many work at Georgia Pacific Paper in Palatka, that's 10 miles away. There's really not that much going on in this little town, and now these people are wondering if there's someone that's abducting children or if it's just a case of some kind of child neglect or something that got out of hand. Meanwhile, things start to cool between Misty and Ron.
This week, I know you had a tough setback in your life. Your husband Ronald announced publicly that he wants to divorce you. This is HaLeigh's dad, and he said that there are inconsistencies in your story that bother him. He has supported you from day one. Why do you think he's changing now?
He tells me it's, just too much pressure on us right now. And, I got family problems. My family's trying to start problems. It's just too hard.
And there were all kinds of shenanigans going on. At one point, allegedly, Ron and Misty put a dead rat in Tommy's mailbox, her brother. You know what they say about rats. And in another case, I believe there was a bust-up between Ron and her father. I mean, it was just crazy.
You've always said that you had nothing to do with this. In fact, you wanted to take a polygraph test, which you took, and failed. Why do you think you failed it?
I didn't want to take the polygraph. I was supposed to do a hypnosis. That's what I was supposed to do. One of the guys said that it could be the reason I'm failing is because I feel like it's my fault because I was the last one seen with her.
It was that night you say you put her to bed around 8 o'clock. At 3 a.m., she was gone and the door was open.
Yeah.
What do you think happened to her?
Someone come in and got her, obviously. I feel like it's on the other side of the family that has her. But that's just how I feel.
And after Misty went on the CBS Early Show, HaLeigh Cummings' attorney, Brandon Beardsley, countered her statement, calling it absolutely ludicrous, and that said that she only said that for the purpose of deflecting attention away from herself.
Do you worry that you might be arrested?
I don't.
And that's what happens, a big drug bust, because don't ever say you're not worried about getting arrested. HaLeigh's disappearance was not a wake-up call for the people involved. They partied, they took drugs, they went on interview shows for money, They had free trips in some of the cases. They got free meals. And they weren't only doing the drugs, they were selling the drugs. And a resident later said regarding the drug use in Satsuma, there ain't much else to do around here. Satsuma is a one traffic light town. Misty and Ronald were busted in an undercover sting operation that also brought in Donna Brock, the EquiSearch volunteer, and Hope Sykes, the cousin of Ronald, and Tommy Crosland, Misty's brother. And in my opinion, and I'm not condoning drug use or selling, in my opinion, this was a setup. In my opinion, the police set up a sting that was a good honey trap for drug addicts, and after asking enough times for the pain meds, Misty and Ron and Donna, they sold them some pain meds. The events in Putnam County, I believe, were the ones that were videotaped. So on January 8th, Misty and Donna Brock sold to an undercover agent. On January 12th, Misty and Ron sold 9 Lortabs for $63. On January 13th, Ron and Misty sold 27 pills for $189, mentioned getting the pills from someone in the VA. On January 18th, Misty, they make the deal, Misty takes the money and makes a comment that Ron has a job, he has money, implying that the money was going to be for her. And on January 20th is the buy that results in the arrest, the takedown. Here's Misty when she first was arrested.
Have you heard that my bond was got lowered or anything? So it's at 50,000 now? Is she talking to Tommy? Yeah. Mama, he needs to. Oh, I thought I just seen him walk behind you. I'm stuck in this one little cell all the time. I know, baby. It's hard, ain't it? It is. They won't even let me do anything. Sucks, man. I hope I don't have to be here forever. Do you know how long out here said that when people are going to bond me out? He didn't say. He just wanted to know if we was willing for them to do it, and I told him yes. Did he say it was a for sure thing? You need to keep on to him, be like, get her out.
So Ron Cummings, Misty Crosland, Tommy Crosland, Hope Sykes, that's the cousin of Ron, and Donna Brock were arrested. And they called it a month-long undercover investigation led by Putnam County Sheriff's Office. Misty also caught a charge in St. John's, I do believe. Misty caught 8 cases of drug trafficking. Ron caught 5 counts of drug trafficking, prescription pills, oxy, hydro. And the sting was captured on video and recorded. And my question was Misty kind of running the traffic op allegedly? Because, she was the one that had been the minor. Like, she had just turned 18. I mean, was maybe that why she was fronting it up, because she was the minor? Note that Misty was a first offender. I mean, she'd never done anything wrong in her 16 years. But Ron had previous drug cases that he seemingly beat. In other words, he had multiple charges and no convictions, I do believe. I could be wrong. I know there were lots of things. Ron eventually pled guilty to this, and he got a deal for 15 years. 15 years for selling some pills, guys. That's a little overcharged, don't you think? But you all know that it was a sting and that the police were hoping to get them under some lesser charges, hold them, and then they'd eventually start squealing on each other or make a deal, and you know that's what was going to happen, right? Even the police really didn't deny it. Johnny Greenwood of the Putnam County Sheriff's Office said, "Hopefully something will come out of it on HaLeigh's side, but that was not the intention," Greenwood said. "This was totally unrelated. It was a very good narcotics case." So Ron made a deal. He agreed to testify for the state in any future case involving the missing HaLeigh. And they dropped 2 counts, the ones with 25-year mandatory minimums. And so he got a deal. I don't really think it was much of a great deal, but it was a deal. Ron's jail tapes after the bust reveal that he was still threatening to kill whoever took his daughter. I mean, he would just go on and on and on about it, ranting and stuff. And after Ron was sentenced to this 15 years, Crystal, the mother of HaLeigh, cried. And she said, I don't want my son to grow up without his father. I mean, 15 years is a long dang time. Donna Brock didn't have as many charges, but I believe it was at her sentencing she told the judge that she had just been trying to make Misty trust her so they could get more information out of her about what happened to HaLeigh, and that's why she gave Misty her own prescription pills. So also Hope Sykes caught charges, and so did Tommy Crosland, that's Misty's brother, the one that allegedly was at the trailer that day that HaLeigh went missing. And Misty had an attorney, Robert Fields. And Misty was sentenced in St. Johns County first, okay? When she caught her charges, she caught the 25-year mandatory minimum charge. Then she was sentenced to her offenses in Putnam County. Misty was sentenced to 25 years because there were mandatory minimums on her cases. And the law enforcement wanted to work with Misty on the HaLeigh Cummings case. And after a few months in jail, Misty began to confess. And when Misty began confessing, her brother Tommy did in tandem almost. Tommy called Flo Hollers, that's his grandma, that's Tommy, Misty, and Joe Overstreet's grandmother. And Tommy tells her to get his attorney to the jail and that Joe did it. Simultaneously, Misty told her attorney and the investigators that her cousin, Joe Overstreet, took HaLeigh and that Misty hid under the covers in the mobile home. And with her attorney, she met with law enforcement for multiple interviews. And she told her attorney, and she also told law enforcement, that her cousin, Joe Overstreet, was involved. That's what she alleged. And at the same time, Tommy's attorney did the rounds on places like Nancy Grace and admitted that, quote, Tommy knows what happened, but he's not responsible. Here's Tommy's attorney on Nancy Grace.
Tom Crosland, your client, told you that Overstreet got very irate. Things happened from there. I'm quoting. Overstreet went into the bedroom where HaLeigh was, and HaLeigh was no longer alive. Overstreet was in a rage.
Yes, that's correct. He went in there looking for this gun that they were going to go borrow. It was an automatic weapon, and out there they do poach at night or shoot deer at night with the headlights and things of that nature. The gun was not there. Misty told him the gun was not there. That's what set him off. He told me that it did occur in the trailer and that he and Misty were not participants but were scared to death of Joe's behavior. They grew up with this guy. They say even though he doesn't have a criminal record, he did have a very violent past, and they were afraid of him. And there was a weapon of intimidation there, and I don't want to get into that because we're still trying to make sure everybody is telling the truth this time, finally, and getting the story as it should be.
By this point in the narrative, Misty has told so many different stories that it's hard to keep track. It seems like every time she tells the story, she tells it differently. And with both Misty and her brother coming forth with kind of the same story at the same time, I think they might have thought it was true because they thought that they didn't have inter-prisoner communication, like letters amongst themselves, talking to themselves between the two of them. But we know from the jail tapes that were released that they all spoke to the same people. For example, they would use Grandma Hollers, to talk between the people. So these folks, even though they were in jail, maybe they weren't contacting each other directly, they were talking to the same people, their family. So the police were investigating the Joe Overstreet allegation that he and Tommy had HaLeigh and took her out to the dock and that HaLeigh was tossed into the river. So what they did was the police took Misty to the river. And then what happens? Misty changes her story because they don't find HaLeigh there. And she says, I lied. So after Misty said she lied regarding Joe, law enforcement wasn't keeping her around or making any sweet deals with her. Ron netted 15 years in prison and Misty netted 25 years in prison. And her attorney later maintained that 25 years was a big victory because she was facing like 100 years of jail time. If you were to add up every single pill, I swear it's ridiculous. Misty alleged that her own attorney promised that she would only be sentenced to 6 years as a youthful offender, and that she offered substantial assistance with the HaLeigh Cummings case. And she appealed her sentence. And she appealed it, but the appeal court affirmed her original sentence. She was trying to say that her attorney promised her an outcome, and you don't do that. As an attorney, you never promise an outcome. And she was trying to say that she was told that since she had never done anything wrong in her life, that she was a youthful offender, that she was young, and that she would only get 6 years. And that once she saw the 25 years, that she was stunned because, hey, that wasn't the agreement. So whenever she appealed that, then her attorney had the right to open up a can on her. Attorneys have a privilege with their clients, but that privilege can be pierced by things like when you sue your attorney or when you file a bar complaint or something like that. So he was able to tell some home truths on old Misty because she essentially went after him. As it stands right now with their criminal cases regarding the drug trafficking, Misty Crosland will get out in 2032, and Ron Cummings is set to get out next year, October 17th of 2022. And meanwhile, this little girl is still missing and is seemingly forgotten. So let's go through some of the theories, because there's all kinds of different theories and there's been all kinds of different stories and lies and things. So let's go through the different theories and the pros and cons of each theory. Theory number 1, situational neglect. After the air conditioning man left, Misty went back out partying and left the kids alone once they fell asleep. And that Misty returned probably before she thought Ron would come home. She found HaLeigh deceased and has help getting rid of the body, probably from a family member. That would explain why they're involved in this somehow. However, if this had just been a case of situational neglect, one would wonder why, if the manslaughter charge was probably the maximum penalty, why the folks would remain in jail so long and not confess. If it was truly just a case of neglect, more than likely they would have squealed by now, right? Theory number 2, the party at Stoke's Landing Road. HaLeigh accidentally overdosed on something during Misty's care. Allegedly, Misty was at a Palatka house party at Stoke's Landing Road and brought HaLeigh along with her, and something happened to HaLeigh. She got a hold of a drug. The party members panicked. Misty got help getting rid of the body, and that HaLeigh was placed in a pond. And when the pond was drained, there was nothing found. So the alleged pond that was associated with this party, nothing was found in that pond. Investigators in 2010 seemed to think that this was still a viable lead. The former investigator on the case, John Merchant, said that Misty has never told the same story twice. And though various people claimed to be at this party and said that Misty brought HaLeigh, those partygoers still could not tell the same story. So they really don't know what to make of the Stoke's Landing Road party theory. Theory number 3 involves Cousin Joe. Tommy Crosland allegedly put himself at the trailer, admitted to seeing HaLeigh deceased, and admitting to going along to dispose of HaLeigh. Allegedly, Tommy Crosland failed a lie detector test. The theory under Cousin Joe is that Tommy and Joe came over to the trailer. They were allegedly looking for Ron's gun, a hunting rifle, and that Misty said it wasn't there, and then a knife was put to Misty's neck, and that Overstreet took HaLeigh instead of taking the gun. That version of the story has HaLeigh lifeless, taken down to the dock near the house and dumped in the river, and later the river was drained in a secondary event. They did not find her there. Note that Joe Overstreet has been ruled out as a suspect, and John Merchant, who is one of the former head investigators, said that the reason Misty was taken to the dock during this search was because the hope was to get Misty to say something, to reach out into that soft spot in someone's heart, and we didn't get it. She said nothing. That's a quote from John Merchant. He was the former lead detective in Putnam County. Again, law enforcement ruled out Joe Overstreet as a suspect. And then the fourth theory, which I just call before work, the concept that something happened to HaLeigh before Ron went to work. But what wouldn't make sense is that the AC man showed up about 5 o'clock and didn't see any kind of chaos going on. So then, seemingly, HaLeigh would have been dealt with by that time. The before work concept would explain that if something really bad happened to her, why Ron and Misty wouldn't be saying anything about it, and maybe why the family came to try to help clean things up. Allegedly. But to me, the before work theory just falls flat on its face. Because he went to work, he didn't act strange at work, he worked his full shift. Yeah, he called her a whole bunch of times. But it just doesn't make much sense to me, the before work concept. And then there's the fifth theory. I'll call it the S offender. There were dozens of offenders in the area. There was even a man in a trailer in the woods behind the mobile home, but the police have said he had an alibi and was not considered a suspect. But there were lots of offenders in that area. Here's what I think proves that theory's bogus. Look at this bedroom. Misty and Junior were allegedly in the bed with the red sheet. HaLeigh was in the twin bed. A sex offender would have had to go into a mobile home, and mobile homes are notoriously noisy when you walk. I understand that Misty had been on a bender and that she was sleep deprived. Perhaps she fell into a deep sleep. But that man or person would have had to think ahead of time, get the cement block, prop open the screen door with a cinder block, open the back door. Then it was a handicapped ramp, so go up that ramp, not make any noise, open the back door that was bolted shut, enter the home without being heard by Junior or Misty, take a sleeping HaLeigh, just pick her up from asleep, I suppose, and just take her out without her making any kind of a racket or leaving any kind of trace evidence whatsoever, and then have Misty tell multiple stories. Seems like John Merchant agrees with what I think about this. Let me play you what he said years later about this cold case.
A stranger comes inside the house and picks up the little girl and takes her out and leaves the little boy there? It makes no sense. I would think that to prop a back door open, with a concrete block, and you know, it was a metal outswing door, as I recall. Something had to make some noise.
Another theory that should be mentioned, though I don't think it's viable at all, was that HaLeigh that night, when everybody went to bed, got up, walked out on her own steam, walked down to the river and drowned. And I don't think that's even viable. I mean, she was afraid of the dark. Everybody has said this child was afraid of the dark. You're not going to have a 5-year-old go out without her shoes on, and that also wouldn't explain the cinder block, right? HaLeigh couldn't have lifted that cinder block. So I do not think she wandered out in the dark, leaving not a trace. And then the final theory, I'll call it discipline gone too far, or discipline gone awry. That theory is that HaLeigh, after Ron went to work, acted up or wet the bed or did something that made Misty call Ron for guidance regarding her discipline. And that allegedly Ron told Misty to discipline HaLeigh, and that then HaLeigh accidentally died due to the discipline. This theory has folks bringing up HaLeigh's past bruises and injuries used as evidence of some kind of parental abuse. Apparently one time she fell on the sidewalk at school or at the monkey bars, and she had a bruise on her face that people have pictures of. But I think the school said, it happened at school. Additionally, both Crystal and then Misty have come forward and said that Ron was abusive to them. The theory of discipline getting out of control would explain why both these folks wouldn't say anything, would also explain why the family circled the wagons. And so, I don't know. I really don't think that Ron would have ever hurt HaLeigh. I don't know about Misty. The family said that HaLeigh absolutely adored Misty. And Ron has gone on record, said that he only ever disciplined HaLeigh or spanked HaLeigh, quote, the way DCF said it was okay. So here's my opinion of the whole matter. The parties have dishonored and disrespected HaLeigh's life and possible death with their lies. And I believe the case is classified as a homicide now, even though HaLeigh is still listed as a missing person. I think it's a moral sin to turn a blind eye if you know something that's happened to a child and you don't report it to the authorities. And in my opinion, folks are living with that sin now. People often come forward with information after time passes. Unless HaLeigh Cummings wandered off and drowned in the lake, then someone was involved in her disappearance and knows something. Maybe many someones. Some witnesses fear the perpetrator. Others fear their complicity and do not want to incriminate themselves. Some fear to snitch. Some may fear the wrath of Ron. This came from one of Misty's released jail tapes.
They moved Ronald back to Putnam County.
I know. I know.
He's acting like he's a thug, I heard.
Huh?
I heard he's acting like he's a thug and he's gonna kill this person and da-da-da-da. I don't know.
And allegedly in front of Tim Miller of EquiSearch, Ron brandished an assault rifle in front of Junior and Misty and threatened to murder suicide if Misty had anything to do with HaLeigh's disappearance. Allegedly, he said he would blow the teeth through the back of her head. Maybe that sticks with Misty. Who was the last person to see HaLeigh? Misty. Who had the care, custody, and control of HaLeigh that night? Misty. Law enforcement has maintained that Misty is the key. And law enforcement has also implied that all the parties have been untruthful in whole or in part throughout the years. If whatever happened was an accident, even if it's a neglectful accident and covered up, the legally mandated time for such a charge is less than what some of these folks, these persons of interest, are spending in jail doing time on drug crimes. Was it something more sinister than an accident? Otherwise, why not cut a darn deal? Or is it that the last person to see her alive fears the wrath of Ron Cummings? If you have any information about this case, you can call the Putnam County Sheriff's Office at 1-386-329-0801. Anyone with information can call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. That's at 1-800-THE-LOST. And I believe there still may be a $15,000 reward if you call Crime Stoppers. That's the Northeast Florida Crime Stoppers at 1-888-277-8477. So I hope you found this video to be enlightening. If you want to talk about it, tell me what your theories are. Leave them in the comment section below. And without further ado, have an excellent day. Bye.